I've always had a passion for property, but I knew I didn't want to be a letting agent or an estate agent. And 2 days later, law of attraction put me somewhere, that law of attraction that you just think, if I wasn't there, would I be where I am today? The main thing is just being yourself and just putting your personality out there for people to buy into you first before any of your business products or services. So some people will perceive that as inspirational. It would make people question, what do you do? I'd be very ignorant and naive. I happen not to think that. I'm just a normal guy. I was just like...
Hello and welcome to another episode of the Diaries of Success podcast. And my guest today is one of the people that I have seen grow tremendously throughout the few past years. So without any further ado, I'm going to present to you Mr. Paul Stapleton.
Thank you.
Hi, how are you doing, Paul?
I'm really good, thank you.
I didn't want to give you a huge introduction because I know you have a lot to cover with me today. So I wanted you to actually tap into that. So who is Paul?
So firstly, I'm a husband and a father.
Right.
Secondly, I'm a multiple business owner or an entrepreneur. I run 4 very different businesses. So property, mentorship, events company as well. For me, I think that the main thing is just being yourself and just putting your personality out there for people to buy into you first before any of your business products or services. So I'm just a normal guy.
Beautiful. That's beautiful. Well, this is what defines us. The core element of this podcast is to show people that success is subjective and it's not a formula. So Diaries of Success is literally completely opposite to something that says the success formula, and this is why you're here as a guest of mine today, and a little bit to elaborate about your journey and what you have done and how you achieved it and why we perceive you as a successful person, because we know how long you've come and what you're doing and how inspirational you are. So let's tap into one of your businesses, which is one of my favorite topics, property, right? Your company is called Casita. Which is the word that's derived of Spanish, Latin.
It is, it means small house.
Yeah. So why small house and why go for Spanish?
So firstly, what I deal with are small affordable homes up north. So the name kind of fits.
Yeah.
My house is called La Casita, and it all came from a holiday in Mexico where I was planning to propose to my now wife, and I was looking for a long time as to what to do, how to do it, and got in touch with the Hilton in Cancun, and they erected this hut on the beach for me. So I rented the beach, and it was called a casita, and we had the most amazing night, meal on the beach in the evening, and big bonfire and a bed on the beach. It was incredible. And we came back, we bought our first house, and it just kind of fit quite nice that La Casita would be a good name for the house.
Wow.
And then when I was building the business and I was thinking of a name, I just thought, you know what, Casita just fits in line with what the brand is about. And at the time when I set it up, it was called Casita Properties, and I wanted it to be that way, and it was very corporate and that. But like we spoke off air about branding and stuff like that, I employed a branding company a year into it, and I paid them a lot of money, but what they gave me was a huge education in the mindset and everything like that around the way people view colours and shapes and fonts. And we decided to drop the word properties because, one, it would make people question, what do you do? Who is Casita? What do they do? And secondly, it was a talking point as to what is Casita? What does it mean? And it was crazy to think just a small tweak like that would create such a good buzz. But more recently, everyone's seen Encanto, and they all think I created this brand from Encanto, which isn't true. It was created 7, 8, 9 years ago. But it's just that it's got a bit of meaning to it. So
that's beautiful. Yeah. So you paid this company to do the branding for you. Yeah. You said you paid them a lot of money. Yeah. 10K, I think I heard.
10K, yeah.
Someone be like, oh my God, 10K to spend on just a logo, but they don't know that there is a huge psychology behind it. Yeah. So do you mind sharing a little bit about that for me?
I think I look at the way people would look at the business prior to that, and it being this corporate logo that I designed using Photoshop and stuff like that, and then seeing how people respond to it now. Straight away I can see the value in money that I spent. But the main thing is like the psychology, like you said, behind what an uppercase logo would mean. It would mean quite corporate and aggressive, or a sans serif font to a serif font, and what a colour would signify, and blue being calming and orange complementing blue, and not having red because it's aggressive. Like, there were so many justifications. It wasn't, do you like A, B, C or D? It was like, do you like A because A stands for X, Y, Z, and probably good like 10, 15 bullet points on there. And then B would be this. And it was like, so what impression do you want to give people when they visit your website? Is it that you're inviting? Is it that you're fun? Or is it that you're corporate and you're a company that only serious people should come to? And then that translated into the way they designed the website, whereby instead of having meet the team, it was meet the family. And they included my dogs on there as part of the team, and very comical titles like Chief Chair Stealer and Head of Security. And it just kind of, it fitted in with the way that I would never have been able to build a website or a brand myself. So it was a lot of money, but it's worked really well in my favour. And I'd recommend people to get a proper brand company to set them up.
It was worth it, absolutely. Well,
100%.
You might get some recommendations from you as well. It's colours as well.
Yeah.
Did you choose the colours, or is it part of?
So I had like a dark navy and a gold when it was my logo, and I had like a Times New Roman style font, and it was very corporate and aggressive, and it was really blue was calming. Orange and yellow were good colours against it, so we went for that. And then there were different shades of sort of bluey greys and slate, and it was all explained exactly why that particular brand palette would be good for any marketing that we use, and how they complement and how they make people feel, and how the eyes would focus on certain colours. So if there was a word that I wanted to emphasise, it would look good in this colour against that background. So it was a good life lesson as well, because it was information then it wasn't just for the branding, I could then take that away in everything that I've done since then, in the way that I work as well, and the way I post on social media. So almost like an education as such.
And it has helped you in many aspects as well. So now I know Casita, because wherever I go to, whatever event there is, it's always, oh, that's Casita.
Yeah.
Even without having to do any research, because it's everywhere. It's calming to the eye. It's beautiful. We know it's Paul Stapleton. Well, great to attach the brand to your name. I love it. Now, have you seen any difference? Have you noticed that there is any difference before you change the branding and then after you've had the branding?
Yeah, a huge amount. I think the main thing is where I'd invested money, it gave me more of a push to push the business out more than I was already doing, because I wanted a bigger return on investment.
Yeah.
And I think it was more inviting to people as well. But I think everything we do, people are looking at it, and there's a lot of people looking. There's not a lot of people liking what we do. They might like it, but they don't physically like it.
Right.
And I think the change on the format of how I post, and it being more personal now, so I've stepped in front of the brand as such and become the brand. I think that's the biggest change that I've seen, is created a really nice brand and it's inviting and it's there in the background. But the biggest change that I was advised to do was, you need to step out from behind the desk and behind the logo.
Yeah.
And Casita Properties needs to be Paul Stapleton, and people will buy into you, not just the logo, if that makes sense.
Yeah, absolutely. So now, Casita Properties, what do we do?
So I stepped back a while ago and I looked at pain points within the sector, and I looked for an area that I thought there wasn't a solution to. And that area was the fact that tenanted properties weren't being sold the right way with estate agents. They were selling it the same way as they would sell homeowner occupied ones. So you ring up and the first question they ask you is, do you want to book a viewing? and they would book multiple viewings. And as a homeowner, you're happy to accommodate that because you want to sell your house. But as a tenant, you're not happy to accommodate it. It's an inconvenience to you. You've got all of this anxiousness about, am I going to be kicked out? Is my rent going to go up? What's the new landlord going to be like? And booking all of those viewings would then lead to them stop answering the phone, shutting the door, and also stop paying rent in certain circumstances.
Wow.
So it was all about building a solution around a problem that I saw.
And you touched a very, very good point there. So you're trying to work with the current tenant actually and what the buyer is looking for.
Yeah.
And I've never looked at it that way. So how is now the response of the tenants in there? So Casita now is focused on providing a solution to a problem that is really huge in the market, in the property market, and everyone in property would know what I'm talking about. So how did you come up with this idea?
So I think it was through deal sourcing initially, and just the immediate response that I would get from an agent was, do you want to book a viewing? There would be no qualification, and before long it would be, we can't get hold of the tenants. And there would be these amazing deals out there that stack really well, but we can never get access and we can never get this.
Yeah.
And when you finally got access, you realise that the only reason it was difficult is because, firstly, they weren't even informed that the house was going on the market. So they would find out because somebody would tell them, oh, your house is on the market, are you moving out? And it's just all about communication. And when communication breaks down and there's a lack of communication, that's when deals and relationships fall through.
Yeah.
So for me, it was all about building that relationship up at the very start before we even start marketing it. And I always say this, that buying a tenanted property is like buying a business with a track record. So you've got 2 years history, you've got rental statements, you've got the profile of the person that lives there.
Yeah.
They may pay market rent, they may not. But at the end of the day, it's better the devil you know who's in there. So for me, that's a better investment to make than buying a vacant property,
right?
And then having to put the unknown person in there that you don't know if they can perform, you don't know if they will pay. They might pass credit rating checks, but it means nothing today. So it was about just build that relationship up front and let people know that your typical buying client is someone who is looking for exactly this, a property that has a tenant in, that is paying the rent on time and comes with a glowing report from the landlord. So just so you know, it's being sold to another landlord who will take over the current AST. And as long as they feel comfortable, they'll work with you. And we always would send little gifts after a survey when they've done access for us and stuff like that. And it just lowers the stress levels. They still may be stressed, but not as stressed.
Oh, that's useful. Thank you so much. So do you only focus on tenanted properties?
No, but the bulk is we wanted to create a business whereby, I think the problem with a lot of deal sourcers out there is that they source anything and everything for anyone, and then they achieve very little because they're not known for something specific.
A niche, yeah.
Yeah, and when you niche yourself and you're known that you are that go-to guy, that if you have a tenanted property to sell, you're the man to go to because you have the buyers that only want that. Both buyers and sellers both get that message from what you put out on social media and podcasts and whatever it is that you might do. So it actually makes the lead generation system a lot easier for you because you're not actively out there all the time hustling for new business. We do other bits as well. So we do the odd occasional HMO or Airbnb or vacant property, or sometimes we help people that have chains that have fallen through, and we sell vacant properties. But our bread and butter that we package ourselves as is that off-market, discreet selling service for tenanted properties.
And buy-to-let. So it's not like rent-to-rent and... No.
Great. And we keep it simple because we have one client type, one buying type. They know the product that we source. So they either come on board knowing the yield and the product that we source, or they don't come on board. But that way I'm not looking for 10 different criteria for 10 different people. I'm looking for one property for 10 people, knowing that as soon as I launch that, any one of those 10 will buy, and I know what I can sell. I'm not looking for instructions or listings and putting it on Rightmove and hoping that if I cast a net out, I'm going to pull someone in. So it seemed like a clever business model that's paid off.
Yeah, well, it looks like you already have the strategy in place.
Yeah.
It's working for you. So why would you change something that's already working?
Keep it simple.
Absolutely. Well, you've mentioned deal sourcing a couple of times, and I've had, oh my God, being someone who has over 100 properties in the portfolio, I've dealt with a lot of deal sources out there, and I must say there are a lot of rookie deal sources. And I can't believe how they're still operating. And they're giving a bad name to other people. You know, like one bad apple will just ruin the whole box. So how do you keep away from the competition? And, well, not really a competition, but how do you still keep the business ongoing, knowing that there are people now giving a bad name to the industry?
For me, it's proof of concept. And it's showing people what you're doing every single day. So I religiously post 3 times a day what I'm doing. So I think if people can see that you're actively out there, you're doing things, you're achieving things, you're completing on things. I talk about my wins, I talk about my losses, I talk about everything. I'm an open book. So I never hide if a deal falls through, because I think if a deal falls through for me and I share that experience online, that will prevent you and the person there from making that same mistake again. So it's sharing a bad experience so that other people don't make it. So I think firstly, branding, make sure that your social media is on point, because look, as a deal sourcer, we're not a high street shop. So our shop window effectively becomes our social media, and that's the first thing that people see.
Yeah.
So you need to make sure that they're not walking into an empty shop, because they won't come back. But if they walk into the shop and the shelves are full and they like the content that you're putting out there, they'll stay longer and they'll come back and they'll refer you, and it'll be repeat business. So for me, the main thing is just make sure that if someone wants to look at you or look into you, your position is that you are an expert in the field of what you do and you're documenting it on a daily basis. Right.
And it also shows that you're a human being, you know,
Exactly.
It's not like all your business is 100%, you know, it's very successful, but you've learned from some hiccups along the way.
Yeah.
And if there is something that doesn't go right, it's just a learning curve instead of just being, you know, like a failure kind of thing.
It's only a mistake if you make it more than once. That is like the ultimate thing that I've learned. If you make a mistake, it shows that you're growing, and you learn from it, and you make sure you don't do it again. And we have processes in place within the business that we follow. So if we make a mistake, we sit back after a day, after we've absorbed it, and we look at it and we work out what could we have done differently and how can we prevent this from happening again. But again, it only happens if you're growing. If you're comfortable and you're just doing what's easy, you're never going to grow the business to the level that you want it.
Now, your team.
Yeah.
Looking at, I know you have 2 offices.
Yeah.
A team of over 10 people, 14 people.
Yeah.
So how do you keep the ship sailing?
So we've got the office down here in South where I'm based, and then we've got an office in the Northwest, which is managed by someone that I have, an office manager. I think the main thing is that everyone is self-employed. It's something I'm passionate about, that you get the best out of people when they have the ability to earn uncapped earnings. So nobody's employed on a wage, and no matter how hard they work, they can only take home a certain amount of money. So look, sales is a revolving door. Like, you could start off 14 people at the start of the month, and then by the end of the month you're down to 10 because some people just can't cut it. So I take everything with a pinch of salt. The team are not all salespeople. I've got a PA, I've got a sales progressor who's full-time, which is the best investment I ever made for my business. As you know, it's an absolute nightmare progressing sales, and the bulk of sales that fall through are because they haven't been progressed the right way, and they've been left to go through organically. But it's a typical company where you're going to have 80% of the revenue generated by 20% of the staff. So having a large team, it increases the chances of success. but it doesn't guarantee the chances of success. So
Absolutely, yeah.
I have a team that work well, but outside of the team, I have a number of estate agents that I work with. I have a number of cash buying companies that I work with. I have a number of people that introduce stock to me because it's proof of concept. We've done a deal together. And sometimes that deal doesn't have to be successful for them to come back and use you again. I think it's the way you handle deals that go wrong as well, because not every deal goes through. No matter how good a deal is, a vendor could pull, something could come up in a survey. But like many deal sourcers, they'll bury their head in the sand or they'll walk away and they'll block you and stuff like that. It's about how you handle a problem and you document that you did everything you could to try and save that deal.
Right.
And even if that deal didn't go through, people will respect you for that. And I get more respect from a deal that is problematic than I do a deal that goes through and was really easy. There were no issues on the way, because people want to see what you can do in a bad scenario. So 100% you need to have the right team around you. And as I said, it doesn't mean having this massive sales force.
Yeah.
It needs to be the right team to support you in every aspect of the business.
And are they all happy, just being self-employed, and they know they're not capped to the limit of their earnings, isn't it?
Yeah. And that's I've never had a wage ever.
Yeah.
I've always been commission based, and that's always got the best out of me. And I feel that's when people excel, because there is that no limit. But for some people, they need that security blanket, and they might only last a month with us and then they go off, and that's fine. I've learnt that at an early stage that it's not for everyone. But again, it's the people that want to succeed and want more in life that will just take that and that will go off and they will achieve massive success.
Are they all sales trained?
The sales trained through me, yeah.
Right, so basically they're using the same system.
Yeah, which I like, because they don't come with any misconceptions of what they've been taught somewhere else and what they think is right. So it's what's right and what works within my business. Right,
so do they have a little bit of sales background, or is it?
It varies. I get a lot of graduates from uni, and I get a lot of people that are ex-estate agents. So they come with the knowledge, but they haven't necessarily had a huge amount of sales experience. They've just always sold a house based on Rightmove and being someone that goes and opens the door and lets you in.
Yeah. It's important to have a sales knowledge, like a
foundation.
Absolutely. And I know a lot of people who are a bit afraid or skeptical because they think sales is a bad thing, whereas it's the core element to any business. I mean, a business doesn't sell. How is this business generating any money?
Yeah.
So if I ask you, how would we change people's perception about sales?
I think you need to make people realise that the whole world revolves around a sale. And I said this on the previous podcast with Ibrahim, is that you asked me to come on the podcast. And if I said no, I've sold you a reason why you haven't sold me a benefit yet.
Yeah.
So then it would be up for you to sell me a reason why it was worth me spending my time coming on the podcast. So a sale has effectively taken place here because you've sold the benefits of your podcast.
Yeah.
And I've bought into that. And that's like anything in life. Like everything is a sale. You go to a restaurant and they ask you, would you like any sides? Yeah. That's a sale. They've upsold you to something that you weren't going to buy before. Like it's wherever you go. But the quicker people realise that, the quicker they realise the importance, because the quicker you understand sales, the quicker you'll realise when you're being sold to as well. So you become more aware of it.
It just makes me think of when I asked you to be on my podcast.
You're going to be going through your DMs now, aren't you? And
I must have done something right.
Yeah.
Well, thanks for that analogy of how sales works. And I think everything we do in life, whether we are, maybe when you want to ask your kids to go to bed, you're selling them the idea of going to bed. And when you propose to your wife, you had to sell her the dream of why she should
actually... It's a yes or yes answer. There was no yes or no.
Exactly. Well, so everything revolves around sales. So thank you for sharing that,
okay.
and also being someone who teaches others and your team specifically, because you want them to do well. So now, isn't your team going to be like, oh, if it's like this and it's simple, probably not that easy, but it's simple, let me just do it by myself.
Yeah.
Don't
and
you
the
have
funny
that?
thing is that they do that, and then they always try to come back 6 months later.
Wow.
But you know what? Look, not everyone is going to stay, and not everyone will enjoy, even though they're self-employed, effectively, in a way, they are employed by the company. And I think the right caliber of person will eventually want to spread their wings and go off and do it.
Yeah.
And I'll look at that as a benefit, that what I've taught them has given them the confidence enough to go and do it anyway.
Yeah.
But regardless of them, my business will still run because I have enough business coming in. But I just see it, how I see the setup is more like an apprenticeship. So they're learning and they're earning as they go on, and when they're ready to go, they will. And it doesn't mean we won't do business if they're independent of us. They
Right.
may still bring deals to us because they want to go off and do something different, like rent to rent or something
Yeah.
like that. And the odd deal comes their way and they provide it to us. But I'd never hold anyone back if they wanted to go and set
their
up a
own thing,
business.
yeah.
If anything, it would be in my interest to try and help them.
Yeah, and it just shows how great of a mentor you have been throughout the process of when they were working for you. I mean, I've had that in my office as well. I've had a situation where my mentee actually said, "Can I shadow you for for a number of days?" And I'm like, you know what? That's fine.
Mm-hmm.
You can do that, but here are some tasks I want you to be better at, and I'm sure there's always something that they can do. Okay, so this is your strongest asset, for example. This skill is what you actually master. Let's look at how you can do it. So they've paid for the mentorship, and I've had that situation where people are like, "Oh, are you not afraid of?" Just literally the same question I've asked you, and looking at what they have brought me throughout the business, and if they go, like, okay, you know what? I'm sure they've made me enough money to not to worry about the fact that they have still. So it's like a mentorship that was paid through business rather than through money. So
I think as well, it's what I said about stepping out from behind the brand and the brand becoming you. Because when someone does learn from you and they go off and they set their own business up, they will never be you. So a lot of people say you're not worried that they're going to take business from you. And it's like, there's so much business out there that we can all do, but people will buy into people like them. So you could potentially have two completely different personalities between you both. People would want to buy from you, and they might be willing to pay a higher premium to buy from you than they would to buy from the other person who's charging cheaper because they don't like their level of professionalism.
Right.
So people are paying for a level of service that they think is worthy, and they're paying that based on the person offering that service. So I don't think it's a danger that someone could come into your business, see what you do, and try and replicate it, because there will always be competition out there. It's probably better that you know and understand the competition that you have out there than you don't. But I think as long as you're being different and you're being unique and you're being true to yourself, that's what people will buy into.
Yeah, and there's always enough market for everybody, isn't it?
Loads.
Now, for your team to be believing in you must have done something great. But I'm sure it hasn't always started with a team of 14 people. You've started as a one-man band. And then how easy was it? Because definitely it was not easy for me. I was married to my business. And for me to be able to replace myself and just source things to my team, it was a difficult task. How easy was it for you to, get from a point where you're by yourself and then, no, if I want to grow, if I want to scale, I have to give some tasks and outsource them to other people?
Yeah, so delegation was something, but I think being a bit of a control freak around my baby, delegation was tough. And I think the realization for me was year one in deal sourcing. Spent 3 months sourcing hard. And then I spent 3 months then selling those deals.
Right.
And then I spent 6 months progressing those deals. And at the end of it, we earned really well. We earned over 100,000 in the first year. But when I sat back and looked at it, I was just like, effectively, I've only worked 3 months of the year, because if I would have delegated the tasks out, so I would have had a sales progressor and I had a sales team, I could have quadrupled what I did in the first 3 months throughout the year. So the first appointment I made was the sales progressor. It was someone I'd worked with for a long time in previous roles that I had, 25 years worth of sales progression experience.
Wow.
And what I did is, instead of offering her a wage, I actually offered her a share of the business because I knew the value of her and I knew how important it would be to have someone there 24/7 progressing those deals to ensure the money comes through. And I think that's why she's been so loyal to me, is because from the off, she was offered a chunk of the pie. So the first appointment was that. And then I looked at the two tasks, so sales and sourcing. What was my strongest skill set and what did I enjoy the most? It was the sourcing side of it, because there was that selling element to it as well, selling why the vendor should come with us. So then I outsourced the sales, and the sales went to a financial advisor that I work closely with, which provides clients, in my opinion, that are probably one of the most qualified out there because they're approved through an FCA regulated company.
Yeah.
And more importantly, they are investors and not property investors, which I think is a really good position to be in, because they haven't been on the courses that we've discussed where they want BMV and they want this and they want that. As long as it's beating where their money currently is, they're happy to pay the right price for it, whether it's market value or a little discount, something like that. But they're buying on yield and not BMV.
Beautiful. The property strategy, is property. I mean, in general, industry is so vast and huge. There's so many strategies out there that someone can jump into. Why did you choose deal sourcing?
So I've always had a passion for property, but I knew I didn't want to be a letting agent or an estate agent. And I was in the gym and I heard an advert and it came on about earning money from other people's money in property.
Wow.
2 days later, law of attraction put me somewhere where I bumped into someone that I knew. He had a team of 75 people in an office, a deal sourcing company,
wow,
deal sales company, probably the biggest company that I know. It's no longer around, but he was talking about struggles that he had with his deal sourcers. I was talking about how I'd just set up a sales training business and I was training different people, and his problem fit with what I did. So he had a great team of sourcers who were very knowledgeable.
Yeah.
But the issue was getting it over the line. So I offered to come in and do an hour's training with them on sales skills, negotiation. Ended up being 4 hours. And we said, let's speak in the morning. But by the evening, my phone was blowing up from him. And he was just like, the response I've got from the guys, they've got the buzz. They just want to learn more. So it became a more permanent thing. And that's how it was kind of like a mutual thing that, okay, I'll come on as a consultant. I'll do the sales training and you pay me for my time. But in return, I want the knowledge on what you're doing and everything like that. And it led to us setting up a business together. So
nice.
Yeah, it was a good, it was just that law of attraction, that moment that you just think, if I wasn't there, if I was held up in traffic or I woke up later, would I be where I am today?
Wow.
Because we wouldn't have bumped into each other in the high street.
Well, I love that. It's as I said, the law of attraction, or everything that's happened was meant to happen anyways. I also, jumped in property by accident. Yeah. I never really thought I would be in property. I was going for an event that was meant for Forex trading, and I think the receptionist sent me to a different room.
Oh, okay.
And I literally just walked in. I'm like, oh my God, what's this about? So, but I think everything is meant to be happening for a reason, and you are a successful person today just because of that. So amazing, well done. You have different businesses. You mentioned you have 3-4 businesses. So another one that I really, really like, that you're out there teaching people how to be more visible, how to put themselves out there. And it's in a partnership with the one and only Aaron Knightley, right? It's peak performance events. Tell me a little bit about the business and how the idea came and how it started.
So this time last year, Aaron and I got in contact with each other. Aaron had a podcast that he was just kind of trying to grow and he wanted sponsorship. And I'm always looking at new ways of networking and new ways of getting the message out there that nobody else is doing. And I thought anybody could be my ideal client. What's the best way to get out to the masses? Aaron had an entrepreneurs podcast, and I thought we'll give that a go. And very quickly we realised it wasn't just a sponsorship for a podcast. Like we shared the same vision, and I went to an event and people recognised the Casita brand from the podcast, and we got talking, and they were like, we love all the guests that you're getting on there, but like 25 minutes just doesn't seem long enough, because by the time you ask questions and then they respond, we're probably only getting like 10-15 minutes of them. And we were in that setting of an event, and it was okay, the event, but it didn't feel buzzy enough. And I spoke to Aaron after. I said, oh, it's amazing, like people recognise me from the podcast and stuff like that. I said, everyone's feedback is like they love it. And he said, what was the event like? I said, average. And he's like, okay. And I said, what do you reckon about us taking the philosophy of the podcast but creating a live event?
Wow.
And he was like, could work. And he said, how do you see it working? And I said, look, I've got a brilliant office space with a really nice area that would be great for an event. I've done a few events myself there. Let's get a few sponsors on board. And we sold our philosophy to a few people that we knew. The event was fully funded through sponsorship.
Wow. We
got 4 really amazing guests on. We sold 70 tickets for the first event, which was pretty good.
That's amazing, actually.
It was amazing. Like, this was all from the first podcast we did was in February to the first event, Peak Performance, was launched in April.
And did you do that through marketing, through
just social media and word of mouth and stuff like that? It was on Eventbrite, and it did so well. And we just thought, you know what, if we're going to do it, we got to do it properly. So we increased the level of sponsorship that we got. We took it up into London, into Farringdon.
Nice.
Again, at Farringdon, sorry. We've got a passion for finding weird and quirky spaces. So the whole conference rooms in Holiday Inns and stuff like that wasn't us at all. We wanted places that when people walked into, they would be like, wow, like what event? The venue's the first thing that blows them away. And then the amount of people in the room and the buzz and what they would come away from. And then the most important thing was they weren't ever going to be sold anything at the event. Like, we may have people that have courses, we may have people that have products. It's up to you to follow that person after for them to offer you a product.
Yeah.
So that was the biggest thing. At the first event, everyone was like, I was just waiting for the pitch, and it never came. And they said, like, the whole time I feel like I had my guard up. And they were like, so when I come to the second event, I'm going to feel a lot more relaxed, because I'm so used to going to educational events and it being a hard pitch all the time. For us, we just wanted people to come away feeling inspired, that they've networked with some really good people and they've met people that they never met before. And our big thing was everyone gets a Peak Performance pad and pen so that they can jot down all of their takeaway points from the event. And so many people came away saying, I've never written so much information in my life.
Wow.
And I think, again, it's because that's what we wanted to push. So we created this event that we thought was amazing. And we're now on our fourth event. Every event's been different topic. It's never niche to an industry. So it's something that's transferable across all industries, whether it's mindset, personal development, marketing. And what it's created is true networking. We spoke before about property events. It's, for me, a lot of them are like, so we go there and we see the same people every time. So it's more of a social, whereas you're meeting people from different backgrounds. An insurance broker could be there, a financial advisor could be there, somebody that works in Tesco could be there. But guess what? They could be your next potential investor, as opposed to being in a room full of your competition at a property event, all pitching that one investor for investment.
Yeah.
So we're doing well. I think our biggest success last year was that after our second event, we were approached by a business that's co-owned by Alan Sugar.
Oh, wow.
And we got a year's sponsorship from them for the event. Alan Sugar did a really nice video endorsing the event, that he sponsors it and everything like that. And they've gone on to trademark Peak Performance internationally as well. So we are nearly fully trademarked. We're still going through it. But yeah, that for me was one of the biggest successes of last year, was someone that you've looked up to for so long sees the value in sponsoring your event, after your second event, and not only for one event to test it, but for a full year. So it was really, really good.
I'm inspired. And it's a beautiful story to share, because it only shows that for you to be able to attain where you want to go, you only have to take action. And what if that idea just stayed as an idea? It would probably still be out there. Oh, yeah, we can do this. Whether action taken and just being, you know what, let's do it.
Yeah.
If it works, it's amazing. We're going to scale it. If it doesn't work, let's look at what we did wrong and still make sure that we make it.
It's so funny you say that, because every day I post a quote. 7:00 in the morning, religiously, I have a quote that I'll post. Today's quote was, entrepreneurs are people with, not just people with ideas, but people that implement ideas.
Yeah.
And that's in line with what you said. There's no point having an idea and saying, well, I thought of that first, if somebody decides that they're going to implement it, and then you lose out. So you have to take action.
Yeah, absolutely. I think this is something I have suffered with for some time. Before I started the podcast myself, I was always, in my head, I was like, is my English good enough? Do I have what it takes to have the podcast? Do I need maybe our guests going to accept to be on it? And then I said, Hadra, you're just giving yourself excuses. You just have to do it, and that's it. I think that's an inspiring point to all of us, myself, and all our audience. Now, Peak Performance, it's only been for a year now. It's only been running for a year.
Not even a year. So
wow,
April.
It was going to be the anniversary. Oh my God, that's beautiful to see how tremendous you're doing. And wherever I go, literally, you have Peak Performance on everything, and you're branding, you're putting it out there. People are just, what's Peak Performance? Let me just Google it. So maybe it's going to be a good idea to have you and Aaron, just to talk about Peak Performance.
Yeah, we can do that. Yeah.
So tell me, by the time this episode is going to be launched, the social media one would have gone. So what type of topics and how do you choose them?
So we look at real life scenarios. So like our last event in December, it wasn't the most sexy event. It was around finance, but we felt there wasn't a better time for us to put on a finance event when everyone was feeling the pinch. So we pulled in some guests that we know personally. These are people that feature on BBC, ITV, Channel 4,
right,
offering the nation financial advice. And it was a great event because it was relatable at that time. Coming into January, February, a lot of people were setting their goals for the next year.
Yep.
And I think 2023, with the way the platforms are changing, is the year that people either get left behind or they adopt social media, they get on it, they bite the bullet. Like you said, you think about it. Like, I used to hate being in front of camera, doing stories, stuff like that. I still don't enjoy it at times. But you do it, you post it, you get your message out there, and you get on. So social media was the one that we really were excited to do. From our podcast, we've built up such a good client base of people that we can call in favours. So we looked at social media and we thought, what do we want to cover? So the first thing was we wanted to cover someone that's built a business solely on social media. And we know Tyrone Ash really well.
Right.
And we thought, you know what, this is a guy who's created a multi-million-pound business through video content on social media, going against the grain of what is the norm, which is selling luxury London real estate from a luxury office in Mayfair. And he's obviously done something right, and it would be good to hear why he did it, how he did it, and any advice he would give people about creating social content. We also pulled in someone that we know that has over 2 million followers on TikTok. He's had a huge amount of viral videos. He gets massive brand deals. He's coming in two parts: one, to talk about his story, and two, to talk about how you can make money from social media.
Yeah.
So it's not just selling your product, but it's selling other people's products. It's getting sponsorships, it's getting brand deals and stuff like that. And then the third one is in my eyes, the biggest social media influencer management company in the country.
Yeah.
Talking about what's achievable from a management point of view and where you should go with it. So regardless of your business, there's going to be certain things that you may or may not relate to, but you can implement a lot of it within your industry, whether it's property or whether it's finance or whatever it might be. It's transferable across all platforms. So we're really excited about that one. I think it's going to be really good.
Beautiful. Well, before we jump into the next part of the podcast, there is something we do in our podcasts, which we play a game with our guests.
Okay.
And it's a different type of game every week, depending on the guest. So I prepared a game for you.
Right.
That's called Give Me One. Okay.
Right.
So I'll give you literally 2 seconds.
Yeah.
So I want to talk to your subconscious rather than
Yeah.
rather than Paul
Then
Stapleton
thinking
now.
about it.
Yes.
Yeah.
So I'll ask you a question, and then in 2 seconds, the first thing that comes to your head.
Cool.
Yeah. But before we do that, I want to tell our audience that we are bringing guests every single week, and these are top-notch people that are, mastering the industry, whether it's sales, whether it's property, whether it's Shopify, whether it is social media, whatever it is that they're doing, it's just they're top in their game. So without you being inspiring or being inspired from who we bring, it's very necessary that you give us a follow, that you give us a subscribe on all our channels to make sure, the bigger the show, the bigger the guest is. So to make sure that we're bringing you the best of the guests. So give us a follow, give us a subscribe. And if you have any questions to our guests, whether it's now, whether it's in the future, drop all your questions in the comment section down below, and we'll make sure we get in touch with them to answer those questions. So let's get back to the game.
Let's do it.
So give me one regret that you have in life.
Not delegating soon enough.
Give me one book that marked your life.
Do less, get more.
By?
Shah Wasman.
Wow. Give me one podcast that you want to be on.
Stephen Bartlett.
I knew that was coming. Give me one business idea that you haven't done yet.
Oh, okay. Online product.
Online products,
Yeah.
nice. Give me one advice that has changed your life.
Be true to yourself.
Beautiful. Give me one movie that you wouldn't mind watching 100 times.
Bad Boys 2.
Can't believe you said that. give me one story when you felt like giving up.
To be fair, last month,
Wow.
we had a major loss in the business through down valuations, and in 3 months, we lost 127,000
Wow.
in commissions. But luckily, I've got a good supporting network around me. But 23rd of December, lots of deals falling through. It's a pretty dark time, but you know what? You go again, don't you? And this is why we have big pipelines, so that you're never relying on one or two deals.
Some people just see the tip of the iceberg.
Yeah.
I mean, thank you for answering my questions. We can now go back to some of your answers, because I want to elaborate a little bit more. People don't see everything. They just see the tip of the iceberg, but they don't see everything that's happening in the background. So you felt like giving up?
Yeah. You question it, don't you? When you lose such a huge amount of money, it makes you think, is it really worth it? And it wasn't. I kind of feel like if it was one deal for 100 grand and I lost it, it would be easier to deal with. But when it's 11 deals,
Wow.
it's like 11 punches in the gut. So, and that last punch, the biggest punch, which was 22 grand commission, came in the form of the 23rd of December, close to Christmas. So,
Wow.
yeah, look, it's about having that network around you that can support you, because I don't know if it's the same for you, but sometimes the people around you at home and your friends outside of your working environment aren't always the best people to vent to. They want the best for you, but they're more interested in maybe you having security in a job as opposed to you having security through your entrepreneurial journey.
Sure. Well, it just hits me as hard. Probably not as hard as it did hit you, but you know, it just reminded me of some moments where I actually also had some down moments. And business is a roller coaster. You know, you have very, very high moments, and the high are the highest sometimes, and the low are the lowest sometimes. And it's just a roller coaster. You're still doing business. So what's the point? You said, you know what? No, I'm not going to give up. Why did you continue doing what you're doing?
Well, because I think the thing is, throughout my journey, I've had those moments already. So I can't remember what podcast I watched, but somebody said, if you fall into a situation that can't be changed, be pissed off for 5 minutes. Because if you're pissed off for 5 days, it doesn't change the outcome.
Yeah.
So be really pissed off, punch a wall, do whatever you need to do, go for a walk for 5 minutes and then move on. And I feel like it happening at Christmas and then having those 2 weeks to pull myself together, reflect.
I love that.
And then come back fresh 3rd, 4th of January. I had that time to process it and to get my mindset right, whether it was picking up a book, doing some stuff with the kids, stuff like that. So I think, that's only something recently that I've watched as well. And I shared it with Aaron, and he was like, you know what? I couldn't agree more. Like, it doesn't matter how long you stew on a circumstance that you can't change. It's not going to change it. If anything, it changes. It's going to hold you back longer.
Yeah.
To then moving forward to make that money back again. So you absorb it, you reflect on it. I constantly do this with my sales progressor. We look at why it went wrong. Was there anything we could have done?
Yeah.
Look, what can you do during a recession when interest rates are going up, mortgages are being pulled, and their surveyors are ultra pessimistic and doing down valuations? Deals will fall through. And as much as you try to save them, some deals are not savable. So we looked at the deals that we think maybe we could have done something different on. And like we said before, a mistake is only a mistake if you make it more than once.
Yeah.
So it was like new year, new start, new implementations on the way that we look at deals and we take things on.
Right.
And you go again. And that was it, really. So I think the Christmas break was quite a welcome break to reflect and rebuild and just get my mindset back to where it needed to be.
Beautiful, beautiful. Let's talk about the book.
Okay.
Why is it that book specifically that marked your life?
So when I started doing deal sourcing, like everyone, it was like 1,500 to $3,000 fees and stuff like that. And I was going away to Mallorca. We go there every year, and I'll always go to WH Smith at the airport.
Yeah.
Find a book that I like the look of, and that becomes the book of that holiday.
Yeah.
And I saw this one by Charles Woosman, didn't know who she was, and it was called Do Less Get More. And I thought, okay, it's an interesting read. And typically the holiday that we go on, it revolves around relaxing on a boat, lots of swimming, lots of snorkeling, water sports, stuff like that. And it's what I look forward to all holiday.
Yeah.
But this holiday, this book just engrossed me so much that I just sat on the boat every day until I finished the book. Nothing else mattered. And peer pressure was boring, getting to see. But what it did is it taught me a few things, and it taught me you need to start charging for your time based on what you think you're worth. A lot of people undersell themselves because they're doing what everyone else is doing, and they wonder, why would someone pay more to work with me than they would for this person? The other thing was setting high expectations on commissions that you ask for. So my average fee back then was like $2,500 to $3,000, and she said times it by 3. So I thought I'll go double digit round figure. So I thought when I get back, I'm going to start asking for 10 grand. And the whole philosophy around that was, she used a quote that I've heard lots of times, which is, if you aim for the moon and you miss, at least you're still amongst stars. And what she meant by that was, if you aim for 10 and you get to 7, you agree on 7, you haven't lost out, because you're still much higher than where your previous commission was. And look, after a while, I was asking for 5s and I was at 7s. And then based on last year, our average fee was £11,200, which equated to an average of a 10% commission per property we sell. And it was just that whole mindset change of asking for more. And what's the worst that can happen? They say no. And if they say no, it's just an objection, and you handle the objection and you close again.
Yeah.
And it's about having an armory of benefits of your service to deal with every objection that is thrown at you. And I think a lot of people just splurt out. They go, we're the best because X, Y, Z, X, Y, Z. And then someone says no, and then like, well, I've said everything. Now I've got nothing else to say. But if it's benefit close, benefit close, benefit close,
right,
you've got a higher chance of getting what you want out of the deal. So it's a justification of why you charge that service. And loads of people say it. You're too expensive. You're too expensive for them, and they haven't seen the benefit in you.
Right. And be more of a listener than just a
100%.
I've heard this the other day, and then I've realized, and what you said just spot on, because so many people, they just give you everything, and then just there's nothing to back yourself with.
Yeah.
I mean, I see it when I go to landlord viewings, and I realize people are just, oh yeah, you give me the property because I'm this, whereas I'm just watching how the viewing is taking place.
Yeah.
And the landlord's like, yeah, but that's not what I want. So rather than just going for what you can offer to them, see what they actually need, and then base it on, and
the people to worry about are those people that stand at the back of the room and don't say anything because they're just absorbing everything. Have you heard of Brian Tracy?
Yes. He's one of my favourites.
Brian Tracy is one of my favourites, and I think he's one of my favourites because he's one of the originals. So everybody knows Tony Robbins.
Yeah.
But what they don't realise is Tony Robbins was taught by Brian Tracy.
Yeah.
He's gone on to be a lot more successful than Brian Tracy. However, he was like the foundations of most people out there. And one thing I learned from him is that a skillful salesman or saleswoman listens 80% of the time and only talks 20% of the time. And the 20% that they actually talk is asking skillful questions and being a good listener. So those skillful questions basically lead on to the prospect telling you, this is what I want, this is how to sell me. And a lot of people don't realise that. They think you have to talk the most in order to be the person on top of the conversation.
Right.
But you can actually control the conversation by the questions you ask. And learn about that prospect before you even sell to them. Like the whole thing with Jordan Belfort with sell me this pen.
Yeah.
It's nothing to do with the pen. It's to do with the person telling you what they're looking for, and then you molding your pitch into what they're looking for. So like with our service, we have what I call the 8 pillars of our service and why someone would use us. But I'd be very ignorant and naive to think that I could pitch every client the same way, because I don't know what your pain point is. If your pain point is that you've had 2 deals fall through, there's no point me talking to you about the benefits that we sell everything off market and there are 0 viewings. What matters to you is the qualification process of our buyers to give you that comfort that if we put someone ahead, they're not going to mess you about. So it's those skillful questions at the start that allow you to understand the prospect, that then allow you to go on and tell them the best way that your service can benefit them. Wow.
I think we want to learn a little bit more about how to do that. So we'll definitely put your details somewhere around this video, and or if you're listening through our audio platforms, we'll definitely share with you guys how to get in touch with Paul, because I think a lot of people need to learn a lot from you. Just going back to peak performance, where do you see it going?
I get asked this all the time. What's the angle? Aaron and I have had some really interesting conversations with some big names lately, people that have seen the brand grow and would love to come on board and be part of it. And it's not their money that they bring, it's their black book. It's the contacts they have. It's the experience within business that they have that is quite exciting for us. And we're yet to decide what we do, but I think being a brand that we can bring in some of the biggest names at affordable prices is our biggest thing.
Right.
A lot of people say that the people that we bring on, we should be charging more than we do. We charge £30 to £40 a ticket. Our biggest thing is that the people that we want to benefit from the event are the people that even £30 to £40 a month right now in the position they're in is tough. But they've got this entrepreneurial journey that they want to start, or they want to move from employment to self-employment.
Yeah.
they're the people that we want to benefit from this. The people that can afford to go on a £1,500, £2,000, £10,000 course in Vegas to watch Gary Vee and Grant Cardone, that's not our market right now. We potentially could create 2 different products that we offer, but our main thing is inspiring that next generation of business owners and entrepreneurs. So I think we want to carry on doing what we're doing, maybe on a larger scale, and maybe taking it around the country, and then eventually being able to pull in some of those big hitters for a different type of event.
One last question before we wrap up. I'm loving this conversation. Unfortunately, we're really tight by time. Well, how do you perceive money? Because it's a taboo.
Yeah.
And I've had I think one of the guests you've had in the last peak performance event, we've had Emmanuel Asuko,
good friend of mine.
as a guest in this podcast, and I love his analogy and I love how he sees money. So what's your view on how money is perceived right now? And because look, at some point in our life, we're not gonna lie about this. At some point in our life, we all were driven and had a little bit of motive money wise. But once we understand the game and once we know how it's actually how everything is done, and once we have it, when it's there and we're financially free, it doesn't become the most important thing. So how do you see it?
I've got 2 answers to that. So the funny thing is, again, something you're speaking about, 11 o'clock on my scheduler, my post was going out. So I've got a reel today talking about how people that say money is not important.
Oh my God.
Yeah. I'll let subscribe to my Instagram, you'll see it. But I put that out today at 11. And so money is important.
Yeah.
Money pays for the studio. Money pays for your train to get here.
Yeah.
Money keeps the lights on at home.
Yeah.
But money isn't everything. Money isn't success. Some people think success is money.
Yeah.
I happen not to think that. I think there's more to what success is.
Mm-hmm.
But I also think money is perceived by the person that is holding the money. So if you've got 2 people and you've got a humanitarian that wins the lottery or has a huge business and he has £1 million and his life revolves around going to places and helping them and building schools and stuff like that, money's perceived as good. But if you've got someone who's got £1 million and they're living a lavish lifestyle and we call it the Lamborghini Dubai lifestyle, some people will perceive that as inspirational, and some people will perceive that in the nicest possible way as twat. So I think money is perceived, however, whoever you're looking at who has it. I think for me, money is essential. It's a necessary that we need. You don't need a lot of money to be happy. You need enough money that can pay your overheads and can provide you with time to take out of work and have those life experiences that life is all about. Nobody wants to work their whole life and not experience anything. So for me, as long as I can have 3 to 4 holidays with my family and my kids can experience new things.
Beautiful.
I've just put my kids into private education this month as opposed to state last month. That's something that I'm really passionate about because I want to give them the best possible start in life. As long as I have enough money to do all of those things, I'm happy. But money isn't necessarily the driving force, because some of my most enjoyable businesses that I have, like the mentorship and peak performance and the podcast, for instance, are not what I call the bread and butter businesses. I spend a lot of time on that because I get a lot of enjoyment out of it. Casita is the bread and butter. Casita is where I make my living. Anything that I make on the others is extra, but I get enjoyment out of making money in Casita, but there's not a huge amount of enjoyment in respect that I feel like, oh, this is amazing and this has changed my life. But with the podcast, we're helping people every day with the message we put out there. Beautiful. With the events company, we're inspiring people and educating them. With the mentorship, we're helping change people's lives to start their own businesses. It's all very rewarding, but combined, they probably don't earn me anywhere near as much as that one business does.
Wow, thank you so much for sharing this, and thank you for being my guest today.
I've enjoyed it. Thank you.
How do we get in touch with you? So for the audio, it's Paul Stapleton. How do we spell that?
So Stapleton.
Great. So that's for Instagram,
TikTok, LinkedIn, Facebook. You can get me there. It's the best place to reach me is on socials.
Right. And YouTube as well.
YouTube as well.
Yeah. I know you have a podcast, so it would be really, really good to just jump into the...
So we have 2 podcasts. We launched a new one this month. So we have the Roundtable podcast, which is all about stories of entrepreneurs and figures that we think their story and their journey is inspirational. And then we've launched the Peak Performance podcast this month,
right,
which is focused more at giving education and gems of advice from the top people within industries to our audience. Our first guest, which we just released the podcast, was Mr. Julius Dean, who, for those that don't know, is the most viral person on the internet, other than Andrew Tate. 45 billion views off of his personal accounts within the last 18 months.
Wow.
Became a millionaire in his first 6 months of going viral. So absolutely amazing guy. If you don't know who he is, he's the guy that chewed a lollipop into the shape of Batman's head for Drake in a club. So have a look for that video.
Absolutely will do. I was not aware of that. Wow.
yeah. So a great way to kickstart our podcast for the year.
Beautiful. Well, just in the description section down below, I will put all the links to how to get in touch with you anyways. And for those who are listening to us through our audio platforms, it's just Paul Stapleton throughout all the platforms, really, TikTok, Instagram, Facebook. Thank you very much. You've been with Hajar Beyaz on the Diaries of Success, and I will see you in the next episode.